I am delighted to introduce and welcome Dr. Mical Raz, who is a health policy historian and physician. Mical is the author of 3 different books and numerous other publications, and has won awards for some of those books. Today, we're here to have her speak to us about her work in the child welfare field, and notably her book called Abusive Policies, which is directly related to the work of CFR and our advocacy on behalf of Black and Brown families and youth who are impacted by primarily the child welfare system. So we're delighted to have you, Mical. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for the important work you do at CFR.
I'm happy to say that you won't just be talking with me. You'll also be joined by 3 of our parent advocates.
Would love to know what your take is on the impact that parent advocates have on the child welfare system. There was a report that just came out that showed parents who have impacted experience or impacted by the system themselves, when you integrate them into the system in a role to assist parents navigate, it makes for better outcomes. I would really be interested to know what your take is on how that does impact the work.
I think the role of a parent advocate is incredibly important in navigating the system the way it is. And I think, who better understand the system than the people with the lived experience who've been through this. And it's a huge asset for parents who are facing the same challenges now, and also as a bridge between service providers, between attorneys, and between the agencies of the state. My first interest in getting to know the child welfare system stemmed from my work in Philadelphia with a community action group called DHS Give Us Our Children Back. And I heard the stories of women who were impacted by the system and how they organized to help empower other women who were facing the same issues. And it was an amazing system of mutual aid and support. And I was really inspired by what can happen when it was primarily mothers, when mothers help other mothers, when women come together and support each other in parenting. And really, this communal approach to parenting is one of the things that is so missing today, and is one of the things that's leading the child welfare system, because we are each parenting in an island, in a bubble, and parenting is so hard. And when we struggle, then it seems as if it's our fault, rather than we don't have enough community supports to lift us up. And if we had all these community supports, we could all succeed as parents. And I'm saying that also as a parent of 4, parenting is darn hard. And we need to be parenting together in a communal way to support others. And how do we do this in a country where people don't have access to childcare? They can't afford to pay for what their child needs. They don't have respite care. They don't have health care. They don't have access to all these things that children need. And coming together is such a powerful way. So parent advocates make things a lot better, but it shouldn't be their only job. It should be, we are all responsible for fixing the system of oppression that regulates and polices families. Until we fix that, I want to uplift the work of parent advocates who are making so much impact in the lives of all those who are affected by this system.
And I think we experience the current family regulation system as in some ways wanting to get a pass. Because they're asking for some advice from system impacted parents, they get a pass on really looking at some of the coercive, historically racist, currently racist systems and interventions that they have in place. Dinah or Hope, do you have any questions you want to ask Mical?
You said understanding history to envision the future. And I would like if you would be able to connect the dots between the civil unrest in the 60s, the war on drugs, Brown versus Board of Education, and how white fear plays a role in the discussion about the current child welfare discourse on deprivation and deficit.
And I think, we can't think about a future without coming to terms with our racist pasts. And the racism that is really baked into the child welfare system. And what is this child welfare system and where is it coming from? It comes from the belief that children are worthy of protection, of legal protection, of intervention. And this wasn't ever true for Black children, right? Black children were enslaved, separated from their families of origin. We have a history of discounting the meaning of a Black family, of the ties in a Black community, and the mother and her child. And child welfare interventions and services were primarily initially targeted for white families. And many cases, Black children were barred from accessing some of these services when they were useful. And when they became more of a way to police and regulate families, that's when they became more of a service for families of color. And that was a process in the second half of the 20th century. And it is also closely tied to the war on poverty in the 60s, which became the war on the poor. By the 70s, fixing poverty is so unpopular that politicians and policymakers go to great lengths to say, oh, children are not doing well at home. It has nothing to do with poverty. It's about child abuse. It's about parents making bad choices. They have money to buy a fridge, but not to take care of their kids. Somehow there's always like this blame that parents have money for something else, but not for kids. Today it's the iPhone, as if, the money for an iPhone could pay for a whole year of feeding a kid, right? So, we always say that this idea that parents are making these bad choices or not caring about their kids, spending money the wrong way. And that is kind of why child neglect is such a big topic. So instead of thinking, oh, parents don't have money, kids can't thrive and eat, it's translated into, oh, these parents are no good in parenting. This is child neglect, and we have to intervene. And this really comes to head with the war on drugs, when this become their scare about crack babies, which today we know was kind of a completely racist image of women who use cocaine during pregnancy, and that there was really no evidence of harm to unborn babies. In fact, most harm to children and families was caused by the coercive interventions. Moms who were sent to prison because they violated technical reasons of parole, moms who were prosecuted for miscarriages and leaving their children at home without a mother because they went to prison. These are real harms versus imagined racist harms of the crack baby scare. And at that time, people were really putting into words this idea that Black women and Black women who use drugs are not worthy to be mothers, and their families are not worthy of protection. And this wasn't a secret. I mean, they really said this out loud, that a woman who uses drugs doesn't deserve the same kind of protections as a mother that other parents do. And so this really became a way to police women, particularly women of color who may use substances during pregnancy. And this was completely unrelated to the harm the substance might cause. And what do I mean by that? There are a lot of things that people do when they're pregnant that might be not so great for the developing fetus. But only some of them lead to coercive investigation. So you may smoke when you're pregnant, you may drink when you're pregnant, you may use certain prescription drugs when you're pregnant. There are a lot of things that might be dangerous from a medical standpoint, but only certain choices are policed and punished to the same extent. And the only answer to that is racism. I mean, this is a form of policing Black women and their bodies. And so trying to think about this history, it becomes a system in which we regulate and police what we don't like. And it's really this moment in, everything I don't like is child abuse. And that's true today, when we're talking about the pandemic. Wearing a mask is child abuse. Not wearing a mask is child abuse. Vaccinating is child abuse. Not vaccinating. So, and you hear people on the news come in and trying to rile up others saying, oh, this is child abuse. And you know what? I kind of like that they're doing this because they're putting all the cards on the table. This is a political category that you're putting out there to regulate and judge other people's behavior. If wearing a mask is child abuse, everything I don't like is child abuse. And let's just put it out there, call it that way, and say this is a made up political category that we trot out to create a mass moral hysteria about something we care about that day.
My question was based on the state central registry and the amount of time that a parent's name remains in that registry, even if a case is unfounded. So for instance, if I get a case called in and subject child is 2-year-old and I have a 2-year-old in the home, my name remains in that registry until that 2-year-old child attains the age of 28. I wanted to know, would you agree with that name removed?
Thank you. So in general, I think registries are abomination. But specifically for your question, I think absolutely when a case is unfounded, these names should be removed. I also think that there should be some kind of discretion and difference between neglect cases that stem from poverty versus cases that result from physical and sexual assault and abuse. And it's also important to ask ourselves, who are we protecting with these registries and what harm are we inflicting? So, and especially in women who are low income and women of color are more likely to be working in caregiving jobs as nursing aides, as preschool aides, as preschool teachers. And so when a woman is not able to earn money because she's on this registry, who are we harming? So we are hurting her family and her income and her livelihood, her ability to access healthcare in a country where healthcare is linked to your employment. We are creating all these downstream harms for something that was unfounded and or related to poverty. And so we are punishing women again and again and again for being poor. Are we keeping anyone safer? I mean, this idea is absurd. So I absolutely think that these registries make no sense, especially when they have such a broad definition of child harm, and that we have to differentiate between different situations, all of which are not good for kids, but the response to hunger has to be significantly different than a response to severe physical abuse.
I wonder if you might, just for a couple minutes, talk about what we might learn at CFR about what we can do and how we might do better.
I think, parents know what they need, and we need to help them get what they need. And that's why I'm so impressed by CFR's advocacy model, because really working together to help parents attain what they need to get in order to be the best parents they can. And it's particularly hard in a country where there are so many barriers. And these barriers include, poverty, discrimination, racism, lack of affordable housing, and childcare. And these are really, really hard things to overcome. And having, this advocacy model where people work with individual parents to reach their own goals is incredibly valuable. We all need advocates. We all need our voices lifted up. Some people need stronger advocates than others because they face bigger hurdles. And CFR is here to really be advocates for people who are facing significant hurdles. That work is so incredibly important.
Well, I think we're all appreciative. Tara, did you have any final thoughts?
The issues are really not being addressed, but to have these conversations really does solidify for us, the advocates who really sometimes need someone else who's outside of our circle to say, there's something wrong with this. This is not okay. And these are the ways that I think we can fix it. I am also not a very optimistic person. I've been trying to work on that. But one thing I do feel very, very rooted in is that I have a platform to do the work that I do. And I always say that I am hopefully working myself out of a job, because this cannot be life forever. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing and having the conversation with us.
Thanks so much, Mical. It's
My pleasure. It was a true pleasure.